Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Vanessa and I'm an indie author and I go by the pen name A.N. Sage. I write YA fantasy, sci-fi, and pretty much all things paranormal. And if you are new to the channel, we are today continuing on the plotting series. It's a mini series about plotting. I kind of break down the different acts and the structure that I use for plotting my books. If you are new to plotting, you might want to watch the other 3 videos that we have in this series, and they're all linked, and I'll put the series up here somewhere. They'll also be linked down in the description for you. Also, if you're new, I would love it if you subscribed, and if you do like this video, give it a thumbs up so we can share it with other viewers out there. So I won't chit chat too much today at the beginning because we have a very big section to tackle today. Today we are talking about Act 2. So Act 2 is a beast of an act. It is the bulk of your novel. It's 50% of your novel. If you think about your novel being broken down into quarters, so you have Act 1 is 1 quarter, Act 2A is another quarter, 2B as another one, and Act 3 as the last one. And so you can see how Act 2, A and B together will be such a huge chunk of it. And there are a few very important, very, very crucial story beats that go into this act. And so we are going to go over those, and I'll try to take my time. I also won't talk your ear off, so I'll be as concise as possible. Now, if you are following along, I do have plotting sheets that I use that kind of combine Save the Cat and the story embryo together, which is what I use as my main plotting devices. And I have those available in a free resource library. So again, the link for that is below as well, that you can sign up and get those, and that'll make it easier for you to follow along. So let's just start right into Act 2A. So as you know from last week's video, we ended with break into 2. That was our character kind of, something happened, the catalyst happened, right? It pushed them into this new world, and they went through their debate and they decided, okay, I am going to do this. I'm going on this adventure. It doesn't have to be a physical quest, adventure, whatever, but it's something that changes their life, and they have taken the leap, the blind leap into this new world, right? And so now in Act 2, we begin in this new world. And Act 2, the first part of it, it starts with the quest. So the quest section is very important, right? Because this is kind of their adventure. From Save the Cat into this quest portion, you will get your B story and your fun and games. Your B story, just to kind of like sum that up, is your secondary story. It's kind of like another plot point that happens. It could be, say, romantic, if you have that in your story. It could be a different war that's happening, if this is the kind of story you're writing. It could be just something else that's happening on the side. It might not even be happening to your character, but it will be another story that is relevant to your plot. So when you're plotting, you want to think not just about your main story, but you want to think about something else that might happen to kind of give another level of realism to your book, to your story, to your plot, right? If your B story is related to your character, I personally really like this approach because it kind of helps you develop your character in a different way and gives them more layers as well, so they're not so flat throughout, right? So they're not just concerned about their life and this plot and the quest that they're on and the adventure they're on, right? That there's something else happening to kind of level them out a bit. Also, if you're writing multiple POVs, your B story could be with those POVs. So like in my latest Shadowhurst book, for example, I had 4 POVs. 2 of those POVs, Billy and River, were back in Shadowhurst, and 2 of those other POVs, Savannah and Logan, were in Fairy, right? So the B story was what was happening in Fairy, and what was happening in Shadowhurst was a completely different plot than what was happening in Fairy, but the 2 intertwined later on in the book, and they were related to each other throughout, right? And so you want to think about that B story as another driving point for your plot. And then the fun and games. This is a really fun one and also can be excruciating because you have to think of a lot of fun and games, right? But stuff needs to happen. Like as you're plotting, think about small things. They don't have to be huge. They could be huge, but things need to happen, right? Also in the fun and games and in this B story, in this whole quest area, your antagonist will get more of a play, right? So now they're making themselves more obvious here. Like you're getting more of like what is working against your character here. You would have gotten some of it in the debate. So some of the reason of why the character might not have wanted to go through this is because you know what the antagonist is going to do and what's going to come into play. But in this quest part, in this fun and games part, stuff's happening to your character, and the antagonist is starting to do more stuff, right? Like they're kind of like pushing your character to do more in the story, both physically and emotionally and mentally, right? And so you want to think of different things that your character could be doing, whether it's meeting new people, if it's like, if you have like an epic like fantasy or something, are they like training? Are there like small quests they have to go within this big quest? If there's a mystery, like what clues are they finding? So this all falls into fun and games, right? And so that's going to take up a very big bulk of part 2A, because it's a lot of stuff that's going to happen, right? And you don't have to, like, the way you can think about scenes. So beats and scenes, they don't have to be a full chapter, right? A beat or a scene can be a paragraph, a sentence, whatever it is, as it's there. But it could be a full chapter, right? So if you're dividing up your fun and games and you have like a few chapters of different things happening, right? Like just make sure that they're different enough, that they drive each other, and that your B story intertwines within those. Then the next thing that happens and kind of ends 2A and begins into 2B is your midpoint, right? This is also known as the surprise. Something needs to happen here in the midpoint that flips the script, right? Your character here in this midpoint, like it could be tragic, it doesn't have to be tragic, but something needs to happen that makes them realize that there's no going back. This is also known as the point of no return, because now they realize with whatever happened, they can never go back to that opening scene, to that opening image, to that life that they had before. Whatever happens in the surprise, this midpoint, it solidifies that they are staying in the story. They're in it to win it now, right? This is it for them. Like, sorry, but you're stuck. You're going to have to move forward whether you like it or not. And that midpoint part is very important. And that's why I said you should kind of think about it before you even get into like the full plotting, because that midpoint is really like, it's exactly what it sounds like, right? It's the middle, it's that middle of the movie where you are no longer going to be turning off that movie. You're really invested. And so you have to make sure that that midpoint is interesting enough and exciting enough that your reader is like, well, I need to flip the page. Like, there is no way I don't get to find out what happened next. It has to be somewhat big and epic in a way, kind of, at least in my opinion, or at least in the books that I write, it usually is. It's, you know, somebody either dies or the character finds themselves in the new world. They get captured. The B story, if it was a love story, during this midpoint, something happens that makes it feel like that love story can never come true, that it's doomed from the beginning, like stuff like that, like just anything that really it just locks your character into place and into this propelling forward motion that they're on now, that it's really like they're on this roller coaster and the flipping belt came down. So whether you like it or not, you're going up, right? That's the midpoint. So after the midpoint, we go into 2B, and 2B begins with a critical choice. So the critical choice is where, in my opinion, like as a way I just divided, like combined the two together, is where your bad guys close in. So your antagonist here is getting closer and closer to defeating your character. Your character has to make some serious choices here. Like, what are they going to do How are they going to defeat the bad guy or your like antagonist? Do they have what it takes? They need to really like kind of dig deep into themselves and figure out like, can I do this? Like now that the seatbelt's on and I'm going up this roller coaster, can I make the drop happen like without peeing my pants? Horrible description, but basically that's what you're thinking of. And you need to kind of show the bad guys closing in. The danger is like higher now, so they really need to like feel like the stakes are really rising here. Like in this critical choice section, this bad guys close in section, the stakes are high. Things are happening, things out of control are happening, and your character really feels like they're locked in place. They're in this place, they can't get out, but like what do they do, right? Then we get into the kind of like not last, but like the bigger portion of 2B. And that's the climax. And the climax, it's funny when we think about the climax, or at least like when I even back in school, when I would like take like all these creative writing courses, I would think like the climax is like this thing that happens, pivotal moment, right? That happens. It's usually not. Climax is built up, right? And so you want to make sure that your climax isn't just like, oh, bam, there it is, like surprise, that's what happened. As its shock value is great, and it has a time and place, but you want to really build up your climax. You don't want to catch your reader off guard. So when you're plotting, you want to think about how to get to this full climax, because that's a whole section, right? But how to get to that final point of the climax as cohesively as possible, right? So what beats fall into this? All is Lost, Dark Night of the Soul, and Break into 3. So let's talk about those one by one. All is lost, right? So we have that moment where the bad guy's closing in, the antagonist is getting closer. Now you want to think about what's going to happen when they get there, right? There has to be some kind of moment where your protagonist is beat down and they are just, something happens where they are just at their low point, right? It's like that part in like Rocky where he's like down and like just bleeding everywhere and you're like, oh man, this guy's just, that's it, he's dead, right? But that part, that's the always lost, right? So, I mean, actually Rocky's really good for all this save the cat beats because it hits all of them. I should have used it from the beginning. Anyways, in the climax part, that's always lost part, something happens to your protagonist. They might lose a loved one. They might lose a part of themselves. They could, like, their plans, whatever they had, were completely shattered. The antagonist could have been onto them the whole time and they just didn't know, and they feel so stupid for being caught off guard like that. So like something happens where they feel like literally all is lost, like there's nothing they can do to get out of it. And then they have to move through what is called the Dark Night of the Soul. And the Dark Night of the Soul is Rocky montage where he's like, I can do it, you know, like all of that. Is they're digging deep down into themselves and like telling, like they're their own cheerleader, like I can do this. This can happen. Like I am not this weak little person. I'm not going to let this big bad guy or girl, who, whatever it is, this entity, whoever, defeat me. Like I am better than this. And the reason I'm better than this is everything that's happened so far, this entire journey, remembering who they were at the beginning, like if they were like scared, lost, confused, invisible, they're not that person anymore. They've been through so much. And like this right now, this is the epitome of everything they've been through. One more thing to add about the Dark Night of the Soul is it's not like, I mean, I keep saying dig down, but dig deep down is actually another beat that we're going to cover. It is digging deep down, but it's really your character kind of battling with what happens. And it's going to show how they come up with a new resolution, that come to a new resolution. So they have to kind of break through. It's a breakthrough they're having. It is like they're really hitting their bottom low and digging their way out, right? And so that's what really the Dark Night of the Soul also is. So it's a good thing to think about as well. Like, how can we think about our character at this lowest point and what is going to make them, while at their lowest point, what's going to make them come to a new resolution, right? It could be something exterior influences or something interior within themselves, but you want to think about when you're plotting, what is going to make them get out of this hole that they've dug themselves into. And then we move into break into 3, which is we're breaking into part 3, right? And break into 3 is kind of like a short little setup. It doesn't have to be anything major, but it's a setup into Act 3. And it happens right after Dark Night of the Soul. Now, Act 3 is going to be like this, right? Act 3 is bam, bam, bam. Bunch of stuff happens and it's the end, right? And so you can see how you want to drag out this climax part a little bit more because you're about to go into like a really fast-paced act. And so you want to give your readers this anticipation into something fast happening, but also kind of slow it down because like, get ready. Like they need to get ready because it's going to be nonstop and they're going to be turning those pages, right? And that is Act 2 in a nutshell, sort of in a nutshell. But essentially, if you can kind of get some notes as you're plotting for some of these beats, like I can, even if you're not a plotter, I can guarantee it. If you have notes for some of these beats, like you will feel so much better about your story because it will start to fall, like it will fall into place. Like Act 2 is where your story will truly fall into place. So I hope that was useful for this part. We do still have 2 more videos left. We have Act 3, the bam, bam, bam. And then we have kind of like the wrap up where I have some more tips on what you do after you've done this plotting exercise. And next week's video, Act 3, it is very exciting. I don't know how long it's going to be yet. It might not be very long, but it will be fast and they'll probably talk fast to keep up with the pace because I do get very excited when we get to Act 3. As you can see, probably from the beginning of these plotting videos to now, like I'm getting more and more hyped up just because that's the pace of your story, right? Like you're going to get more and more faster, more exciting. And so I hope this was helpful and you kind of help you understand Act 2 a little bit better and what goes into it and what should sit in this bulk, in this 50% bulk, middle bulk of your book. So as always, thank you guys so much for being here. If you've subscribed, thank you so much. I'm so happy you're part of this like growing community. I can't believe we're getting so close to 1,000 members. That's amazing. We're going to do something fun when we reach that for sure. And thank you guys for just being here, for supporting the channel. And I hope you guys find this useful. If you have anything you want to know about, you want me to do more videos about, then make a comment below. And I do take notes on everybody who comments and try to scheduling and as much as I can into kind of like these videos. Cause it's always nice. Like I have ideas for videos, but it's always nice to hear what you guys want to hear me talk about, because obviously if you're interested, other people will be interested. So it's just nice to get to that as well. So as usual, stay magical, enjoy the rest of your week, and I will see you next week for Act 3. Bye.